How does a $70,000 lead generation system that allows you to stand out in your zone of genius, sharing your story, serving, and selling sound? Watch this video as I reveal my $70,000 lead generation system that I did with only 50 hours of my time. So that's like $1,400 an hour. That streamlined our sales process seamlessly. For the best leadership tips, entrepreneurship advice, and subconscious success strategies to help you stand out fearlessly, build your empire, and crown yourself, make sure you subscribe to this YouTube channel and hit the bell to make sure you're notified when a new video goes live every Tuesday and Friday. Hey there, I'm Kimberly Spencer, high performance coach and founder of CrownYourself.com. And I don't know about you, but for all the years that I've been in business, whether it was with my private Pilates studio, my e-commerce company, or with my current business, Crown Yourself, my best lead generation strategy has been me. What I mean by that is when I meet people, when I have conversations, when I show up live, when I'm in a workshop, I have a saying that I've had for years that I've said, when I'm live, I thrive. So when I'm in front of people, in front of an audience, in front of someone in a one-on-one conversation, that is when I come alive in my business with my energy. And that's how I easily and effortlessly make sales. One of our strategies going into 2020, once we recognize this consistent pattern of if I'm just live and meet people and show them what I do, then I organically attract leads effortlessly. So in 2020, my Queen team and I started on a strategy to do workshops, and we were going to do live in-person workshops and events every single month of 2020. Really good idea, right? In the same year that a pandemic hit. I didn't know that a pandemic was going to hit. Our first workshop did over $15,000 net. Our second workshop and live event I was able to get an $18,000 client. From there, March happened and my family and I went to Australia. My husband was appearing at a convention down under and we just decided to stay. We thought, how long could this pandemic really last? Well, here we are, months later, still in Australia. I love it in this country. It's wonderful. But what happened was because of our visa, I can't host workshops. I can't host live events. And fortunately, I have an online business. So we're able to profit still and bring in income. And with that switch, with us choosing to stay in Australia, I was out of doing live events and we were down to a one income household. Because my husband, his voiceover business had to pivot. The entire voiceover industry had to change in order to support people working from home. And we knew that that was going to take a while. So for a few months, it was just my business supporting us. And it was from that space that I had to find some form of lead generation that worked as well as me being live and thriving without actually being able to see people and meet people. So I tried several things. I started doing Facebook ads to espresso chats and just doing 20-minute chats, but they really didn't go anywhere. They were just people just desperately looking for connection, and it wasn't really a qualified lead. We started doing virtual networking, and I would show up at these virtual networking, but I tell you, man, the Zoom hangover was real, and the networking didn't really further anywhere. It just kind of people and when we were in the space of the lockdowns and the pandemic, a lot of people just were kind of in that space of thinking about what it was that they were struggling with in their life. And so that wasn't really bringing in the leads. And then the third thing we tried was doubling down on our own content. So I started producing more episodes of The Princess and the Bee, which, by the way, I highly recommend you subscribe to. Click down below. And I started producing blogs, and I love blogging. I love writing. And so it really filled my soul. But I got a 3-year-old, and then I was going to have another one on the way. And after all that content production, I found that it was really great for cultivating and growing our community and connecting with our community, but it really wasn't bringing in those new leads. And that's when I remembered a $10,000 interview. And what I mean by that is that I went on to a podcast back in 2019, and that podcaster ended up becoming a client of mine and working with me for a while. And because of that experience, I thought, well, what if I just did more guesting on podcasts? And then when I really looked at the few guest episodes that I had done, I saw that we were actually generating traffic and sales from those guest podcasting experiences. So that's when I decided we were going to completely pivot our strategy and focus solely for top of the funnel lead generation on guest podcasting. Now, there are a few ways that I could have done that. The first way was hiring an expensive podcast agency. Now, I looked at podcast agencies and they range anywhere between $500 and $1,100 per month, with a guarantee that you'll get about 2 to 3 interviews per month. That seemed like more of a risky strategy than I was willing to take. And so I wondered, what if we could do the same thing internally? And that's exactly what we did. Fast forward only 50 interviews later, within 9 months, we generated $70,000 of new business. Now, typically, it's 60 to 70% more likely to convert a reoccurring customer. And recurring customers and referrals are where my business is at. And here are the 3 reasons why guest podcasting works. Reason number 1, they sell you. So when you're going on to somebody else's podcast, they are bringing you in front of their audience. When you are going on to someone else's podcast, they also are establishing you as the expert. And here's why that works. Because you can walk around all day saying, I'm so brilliant at this, I'm so brilliant at that. And sometimes people think that you might be a little egotistical. And watch this video if you want to learn how to brag on yourself without seeming like a narcissistic asshole. With that being said, by going on somebody else's podcast, they are establishing you as the expert. They are saying this person is worth hearing. So you have right there built-in social credibility and proof. And here's a pro tip. When you're on somebody else's podcast and they're bragging on how awesome you are and your client results and the amazing things that you've done, shut up. Just shut up. Let them talk. Let them brag on you. Let them share how amazing you are, because they are positioning you as an expert. So they're doing a lot of the work. In race car driving and in any sort, or in bicycle racing, this is what's called drafting. So the lead car is driving forward and you are just getting in on their tail. So that means that you are doing less work, but having more of a benefit. And because they're selling you, because they're promoting you to their audience, and because they have already done the work of building up their own know, like, and trust factor with their audience is more likely to trust you as an expert because of the podcaster's recommendation. In fact, one study done by Convince and Convert showed that podcast listeners are 54% more likely to buy a recommended product or service from a podcaster. So if the podcaster is recommending you as the expert and you position yourself in the right way with the right story on the right podcast, you have their listeners 54% more likely to buy from you as well, because the podcaster is recommending you as an expert in what you do. Number 2, it is a one-on-one conversation. Now, what I have seen, having coached leaders and entrepreneurs for the past 5 years now, is that counter to this online model of producing content and pushing a button and suddenly magical people flow into your course and buy from you, counter to that belief system that that's how it works, what I've actually seen work with more business owners with across the board, across industries, is having one-on-one conversations. It sounds counterintuitive to that online model of I'm just going to push a button and suddenly money flows to me because I created a course or I created a membership or I have this thing that I'm selling. It's counterintuitive, and yet one-on-one conversations is where it is at. Because a podcast is a one-on-one conversation, you are building a relationship. That relationship can turn into a client relationship like it's turned in for me. That relationship can turn into strategic partnerships. That relationship can turn into referrals. That relationship can turn into masterclasses and collaborations and every single other opportunity from building that relationship. But it starts with a one-on-one conversation. And so because you're having a one-on-one conversation, somebody is giving you an hour, typically 30 minutes to an hour of their time to build that conversation, and they've already established that you're an expert in your industry, or else they wouldn't be bringing you onto their podcast. And they've already done enough research to know that you might be a fit for their audience or for them. Reason number 3. Podcasts are a one-to-many conversation. So in many one-on-one conversations or sales conversations, you're only directing and communicating with that one person. But because a podcaster takes that one-on-one conversation and turns it into a podcast that they then distribute to their audience and promote to their audience, now you have many ears, hundreds, maybe thousands of ears, depending upon the size of the podcast, listening to you. They're listening to a podcaster that they already know, like, and trust, establish you as the expert. They are listening to your one-on-one conversation and the depth of your knowledge, your skill sets, your stories, and they're feeling what resonates for you. And they're hearing that inspiration, the knowledge, and possibly saying, well, maybe this is a fit for me. Maybe I want to explore more. So more people have ears on your one-on-one conversation. So this 3-part strategy for why podcasting works can totally bring in even more income into your business. It did for me, and I show you exactly how to do that inside of my Communication Queens program. Click down below to get on the waitlist for my 8-week group coaching program where I walk you through my 7-step framework to profiting from podcasting. Not only will I show you how to profit from guest appearances, but I will also show you how to profit from your own podcast. So if you already have a podcast, you can be positioned with the right people and the right interviews to start using that podcast as your own lead generation strategy. Click down below to get registered on the waitlist for Communication Queens. Doors are opening soon. And tell me in the comments, have you ever been a guest on somebody else's podcast? How did that work out for you? How did that work out for your business? Now, if you like this video, if you're like, yes, Queen, I want to get on more podcasts, then definitely click down below to get on the waitlist for Communication Queens. Communication Queens is my 8-week group coaching program that will walk you through my 7-step framework on how to set yourself up for success, share your story, serve, and sell on podcasts. And not only do I show you how to do this by being on other people's podcasts, but I also show you how to do this with your own podcast. So if you have your own podcast, also get your booty on the waitlist for Communication Queens. And if you like this video, be sure to hit the like button, subscribe, and share it with your friends. As always, my fellow sovereigns, own your throne, mind your business, because your reign is now. And here are the 3 Okay, ready? I literally have a podcast interview in like 5 minutes. All right. Rocking it out.